from the All Indiana Podcast Network.
It's time for real conversation about the real issues that affect our communities.
Poverty, education, equality, and more.
This is Real Talk.
Real Talk with Reverend Charles Harrison.
Welcome. This is Real Talk on the All Indiana Podcast Network, and this is Reverend Charles Harrison, and I am joined by my co-host, Reverend Terry Webster Sr. How you doing, Pastor?
Man, you know I always say it's Friday. He died on Friday, but Sunday's coming, but thank God for Friday.
Yeah, Pastor Webster preached for me a couple of weeks ago at the church anniversary before we get into the show, and he just clowned. He just clowned. Amen, amen.
We really had a great time in the Lord. 144
years. Yes, sir. 144 year church anniversary. Well, we have a special guest with us today, and I'm going to have Pastor Webster introduce him. I've been knowing him for years. And he has done a lot of great things in the city, great servant of the city, great singer, great child of Almighty God.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Harrison. Actually, we're not going to ask Chris Wilburn to sing today. We would ask him, and he probably would.
If we asked him. Yeah. Give us a little tune.
But we won't ask you to do that. But no, we're grateful to have Chris. Chris is with Ivy Tech. He is the diversity and
equity,
inclusion.
And community engagement.
And community engagement. Thank you, Chris. Mm-hmm. And Chris is on with us just to talk about basically some of the things that he is doing at Ivy Tech and some things that some programs that Ivy Tech offer. Mm-hmm. And we want to even have a space for Ivy Tech in education in our community. Mm-hmm. More often on here on our show. So, Chris, just kind of tell us about yourself and tell us what Ivy Tech is doing.
Oh, well, first I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you for having me. I know that you and Reverend Harrison are men of God, but more importantly, you care so much about the well-being of our community, and that is a rare feat. Mm-hmm. In and of itself, in the kind of situation we find ourselves in as a country. So I'm incredibly honored to be able to sit in this space and be able to have this. It is an incredible blessing to have a conversation about our young men and our young people and how we can add tools to their toolbox to ensure that they have a future that is rooted in things that you and I both know will lead to some level of success. So I work at Ivy Tech, obviously, right now as the Director of Community Engagement underneath the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Belonging. And one of the things that we talk about often is how the game has changed. Education, people say, is the equalizer, but education now, as you and I know it, it's done in increments, it's done in stages. And what we're seeing now across the board in higher education, specifically in the associate level degrees, micro-credentialing, meaning that if you want to be a welder, a plumber, if you want to be an advanced tradesman, if you want to have a career in the health sciences, then you need to begin that process in high school. Isn't that something? We're going as far back as high school. Right. And I can remember a time when I was in high school, I was taught basic plumbing, but those things aren't occurring now. So Ivy Tech has become a conduit for that. So we're talking to people as young as sophomores in high school, freshmen and sophomores in high school to really begin to plant seeds as to what kind of profession or occupation they want to see themselves in. So it's a fascinating time.
One of the statistics show, especially since COVID 2020, that, and especially in the African American community, black men, we're losing in education, period, but especially in the African American community, we're losing ground. Right. As it relates to, I think studies show, I read a stat where almost 7% down in retention and enrollment in the African American community since 2020 to now. What are some of the things that can be done to help, especially black and brown men, in education and retention?
Well, I'll tell you, those are some of the challenges that every college is facing, the recruitment, retention, and graduation of young black and brown men. Our community is different. We as a community, black men, I've heard this and we talk about it oftentimes, and you do the work that you do too, Reverend Harris, on the street. People participate in activities. It could be criminal or positive when they feel connected.
Right.
And I think for us and for our conversations as it relates to higher education, we have to find connectedness in conversations and dialogue with our people, and understanding that, look, your occupation is not your identity. Yeah. And oftentimes people, particularly us as black, it's crucial because it's like, hey, I'm a plumber. Oh, you're getting dirty. Hey, it's my occupation, not my identity. It provides an opportunity for me to make money for my family. It provides an opportunity for me to be on a trajectory, a career path. And it also, I become a part of a solution within the context of my community. So I think one of the things that we can do is change the dialogue.
Okay.
And what I mean by this too, Reverend, is change the dialogue of just associate's degree. There appears to be a negative connotation with associate's degree from when we were talking to young people. Maybe we as a higher ed institution or institutions across the state need to change the vernacular and maybe start discussing things like college credit, earning college credit to complete whatever trajectory or path you see yourself in. So that may be one barrier that we can change just by changing the dialogue.
Yeah, I know for high schoolers, as we talk about transitioning to college, one of the barriers that we see quite often is how they handle their financial aid package, the assistance and apply. And sometimes there could be so many barriers that these kids don't want to. The FAFSA step, getting through the FAFSA step, so many barriers they don't know which way to go. We're trying to see how we can make that a lighter and an easier apply.
Reverend Harrison, Reverend Webster, Pastor Webster, excuse me. Listen, this is going to blow your mind. As a sophomore, junior, or senior in high school, you don't have to fill out a FAFSA. You don't have to apply. There's a program that the college, Ivy Tech Community College has right now.
That's good to know.
Dual credit, dual enrollment.
Okay.
And what that means is you never have to go down that path. You can leave high school with college credit, enough college credit to be an associate's, to have a college degree. Yeah. You never have to touch those financial aid. Many of us, I didn't. When I was growing up, I didn't know where my Social Security card was. I didn't know where my birth certificate was. My mother and father divorced. I was born in the south side of Chicago. I came up through an area where mom and father didn't make it. My biological father lived in Cabrini Green, which you and I both know are the projects.
Right.
And so the thing is, I didn't have access to all those things. And these young people today, they give up hope because they're like, man, it's too big of a mountain to tackle. So Ivy Tech can come along and we can aid you in that process. And one of the things is, while you're in high school, you can even have graduated high school, and that summer before you go, we could take care of that and say, hey, you don't have to pay for college. We can have what we call it, like, achieve your degree, dual credit, dual enrollment. There's all kinds of vernacular associated to it, but the basic premise of it is, let's educate you here, propel you across the state or across the country or the world to do good things, but your root here is in Indianapolis.
So how does a kid get involved that may be in high school now, whether he be, junior, senior, sophomore? How do you get involved? I think that's information that we want to get out to the community.
Right. So one of the key things that you can do immediately is contact your guidance counselors at the schools. Another key ingredient that you can do, we at Ivy Tech have rolling enrollment, meaning there is no period. We are in 8-week cadences, meaning that we have enrollment all the time. So you can come down to the local campus at 50 North Fall Creek, right there on Fall Creek there. It's an old St. Vincent's building. Right. We get you squared away. Come in there, talk to one of our academic advisors and our financial aid people as a high school student. Okay. And there are a number of programs, as I said, achieve your degree. But here's the biggest thing that I want the community to realize. There are so many career choices that you can look online and say, look, I have a desire to do this, but then you say, I'm not good at math. That's okay.
Okay.
Everybody's not good at math, but if you stick with something, you have the grit, determination, we can help you bear some of that load and be load bearers for you.
Can you talk a little bit about brother to brother once they come on to the campus, and what is it that brother to brother offer?
So that's great. And I think, let me tee it up by saying this. It's such a wonderful thing when you have partners like Eli Lilly. Mm-hmm. Eli Lilly has provided a grant in excess of about $750,000 for a 3 or 4 year period, specifically for brother to brother. And people may ask, what is brother to brother? It's a recruitment and retention initiative for Black and brown men to make sure that they feel connected at the college. We do things, Reverend Harrison, like outings. We do study tables to be able to really teach you how to study and learn. We have men in mental health, where Pastor Webster has been incredibly generous in the knowledge that he's been able to give these young people as it relates to dealing with adverse childhood trauma that they are experiencing and all of what that has to play in decision making. So the Brother to Brother program is a part of SAB, which is Student African American Brotherhood, that was started, but it's not a fraternity. It's not a organization, a social organization. We want to understand you as an individual. We look for your personal betterment, and we try to give you every tool that we have at our disposal to ensure that you remain a student, that you do well, that you're successful, and you graduate.
What kind of grades does one have to have in order to get into the Ivy Tech program? I know that's an issue with a lot of our young men of color.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's a very great question. Oftentimes I've been asked, like, what happens if I don't have my GED and I'm working toward getting my GED? Come and talk to us. We have programs specifically for you that can help you over that hurdle.
Wow.
We also have programs, Reverend Harrison, where I have to admit, I'm going to be completely transparent with the community.
Right.
I struggled academically through my undergraduate, my master's, and then even in law school. But I made it through.
Right.
By the grace of God, I made it through, and I didn't give up. But I think that it's important that people believe that they have to have themselves together, put together, before you enter into those college environments. Come to us, talk to us. Ivy Tech, as I said, is an open campus. There are 19 campuses spread out across the state. So those of your listeners who are maybe in other parts of the state of Indiana can benefit from their small campuses as well. But it's that vulnerability. Don't have pride. Ask for help, and we'll be willing to help you along your journey.
How many campuses do you have across the state?
Yeah, we're in, as I said, 19 different campuses, but the relationships that we have across those across the state, they're phenomenal. That we have relationships with four-year institutions. Here's something funny that we rarely talk about. We have in our own backyard. The Passport program with IUPUI, which means that if you're an Ivy Tech student, you meet certain criteria and you're working your way because eventually you want to go to a 4-year institution, we have a direct admit from Ivy Tech to IU Indianapolis. We have relationships, memorandum of understanding with many colleges, Butler, etc., Martin University. So there's something for everyone, and I'll tell you too, Reverend Harrison, even for our adult listeners who are like, man, I want to re up or level up my career. As the world's changing, we have opportunities for our adult listeners as well, and I think that it's important that this is a state school that's been around since 1963.
Well, I want to give a plug for Ivy Tech because my wife got her college credits there, went a couple years, then she went right to IUPUI and graduated last year.
Come on, somebody. That's awesome.
So one of the things I want to do, because my collaboration has certainly been trying to bridge the gap, tongue-tied, but bridge the gap, close the gap between the faith-based community and Ivy Tech, and some people are not and may never be comfortable in a classroom, campus, college setting. But our goal is to try to have some off-sites to where we can do some small learning and some maybe some helping with the GEDs, helping with your license. Ivy Tech coming along with IVY learning classes and that kind of thing, because the faith-based community is still an untapped community as it relates to education. So collaboration-wise, we're working with Ivy Tech to collaborate to bring more awareness to the resources and the education Ivy Tech has.
Yeah, I love it, because we forget sometimes that our educational institutions, our HBCUs, we had to educate ourselves in those communities, and the church was the very first place. It was the first place that we went. And sometimes we forget that as community members, but we have, as one of the functions of my job in community engagement is to have faith-based conversations at our faith-based institutions, because it's incredibly important to be able to see and hear what our community members want. It's what the community wants. They're driving this festival.
And I'm glad you said that, Chris, because when COVID hit, it kind of shut everything down. It even shut down some church activities and actions. But now, as it's been slow returning with activities and actions, we're hoping to see that action and activity pick up to where we can conversate more as churches began and organizations began now to open back up and talk about the path forward. Hopefully we can get more education opportunity and discussions with the faith-based community.
Yeah, it's important. It's similar, Reverend Harris, to the work that you're doing at 10 Point.
Right.
It's similar to the congregations that you both lead as it relates to galvanizing men and women in a purposeful way to accomplish a goal. And that goal is to bring people closer to their faith, their own, examining their humanity and their actions, realizing that we are first spirits clothed in flesh, but we are in a system by which we have to be able to operate and understand the rhythm of that particular system. And that's exactly what we've been talking about. So I love it.
It's been said that education is the key or the pathway out of poverty.
That's right.
But if we don't know what's available to us, then we'll continue to remain in poverty and crime. As a matter of fact, education affects crime.
That's right. It really does.
Harrison, that's your wheelhouse.
It's true.
And so what we want to be able to do is expose our community to the best opportunities available. And I think right in our own communities is Ivy Tech, which is a hidden gem.
Well, it seems to me, I drive by all the time Ivy Tech, that the enrollment among our community seems to be pretty high there.
That's right. It is, Reverend Harrison. Here's the challenge, though. It's that connectedness. What we find is that if that first semester, that second semester, that individual student feels connected, they have a higher, statistically speaking, higher chance of completing it. If they don't, that's the rub. If they don't feel that, then they're like, hey, family life shows up. Family issues. I got to go take care of grandma. I got to go take care of mom. And there's nothing wrong with that. But people really don't return.
They don't.
And they don't. So what we want to do is figure out an ingredient. And you struck something right there when you talked about that level of starting those conversations, planting that seed. And I think that's for me, one of my life purposes is to ensure that our people have opportunities and they have seats at the table, and they sometimes don't think that they are skilled enough to do it.
So is grades also a reason why some may not stay?
Yes.
If they're struggling academically?
Okay. And so we have resources for those as well. We have tutoring services that we make available through our library. In addition to that, I encourage people to meet with their professors. We have academic courses and trajectories that you can take in increments. And what I mean by that is the pace, the 8-week cadence is a pace in which if I come in, let's just say I'm beginning and I want to be a welder, or I want to be I work as a medical assistant, I can take a particular cluster of courses to begin my journey and then get hired to work in that field while also going while also being in school. So in other words, those clusters of courses are important, and that sets the student up for success to be able to be employed. So with that being said, you don't have to rush through the degree. It's not like a time stamp. There's money available for people to help support you. Brother to brother can support you. There are other STEM specific jobs that are saying, look, if you have African American women who are interested in STEM, hey, we will pay or fund those 100%, Reverend Harrison. Let me tell you a funny story. This is worth our time. we have received calls from employers they'll say, I want to talk to all of your electricians, all of your plumbers, all of your welders. We're like, why? I want to offer them jobs. Well, they're already employed. There are companies who've already spoken with them and given them gainful employment with the contingency of just completing the degree, completing the college credit, and then they have gainful employment. Those conversations occur often, and those opportunities exist.
Wow.
You don't have to be, your identity is not your occupation, is what I want to encourage our community. We have a learning style that is unique. We don't learn the way our counterparts learn. So we can meet you where you are, and I think that's important for everybody to hear.
So how many credits do you need to get your associate's degree?
It's rough. It ranges from I think as much as 60 credits. 60
credits.
Yeah. So you can have an associate's degree in 2 years. And you can have a micro credentialing, meaning if you get to a certain. You remember we talked about those clusters of class? Right. That's a credential. And at Reverend Harris, it goes from computing to things that you're doing. You're technologically savvy. You understand how complex that is. So we can have micro-credentialing as well, and that can be as little as 10 to 15 credit hours. So you see the whole gamut.
And one of the things we did with the brother-to-brother piece, anyone in the past that participated in the brother-to-brother piece, brother-brother initiative, they received a half credit. So even just participating and learning and mentoring, you're getting to have credit for that. So.
And excuse me, this is an initiative that is spanning across. Just yesterday, I achieved a Black Man Achieve initiative in Richmond, Indiana, at the Ivy Tech campus, and we were talking about some of these very issues. And one of the things that I want people to understand is that you are not alone. There are people like Reverend Harris, Reverend Webster, Pastor Webster, that are here, that care. Your community members who are advocates, and we have to be willing to be able to make the ask, do the ask, and seek the help. That's all we need. We can't do this alone. And I think that sometimes our community, the biggest hang up that I see is that we want to do it alone. It's that old adage, pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps. When we don't have no boots, we ain't got no straps.
Well, I was in conversation with he's the commissioner of higher education, which was the vice president at one point at Ivy Tech, which is Chris Lowry. And Chris Lowry and I, during the time COVID, and we were just brainstorming about why such a disparity of black men in college. Well, one of the things we talked about was hope. And from my conversation with Chris, he spun together Bridges of Hope, which means that sometimes before the black and brown community, especially poverty-stricken, can even think about pulling themselves up at a table learning at a community college, they have to have hope. And all the other needs sometimes need to be met. Sometimes they need to even think about where we're going to even lay my head versus where am I going to get through a college class or course. And so from that spun Bridges of Hope, and I think Ivy Tech serves with wraparound services. Can you talk a little bit about the wraparound services?
That's good. That's great. So there are instances where people are coming into our doors who don't have adequate housing, or sometimes sleeping in their cars, who can't afford basic things that we take for granted. So we have what we call our Ivy Cares, which comes along in emergent situations and help with the bills, providing computers for our students. We have counseling on site at this campus, Indianapolis campus, that can it will get you at least started on that trajectory and that path to getting the mental help that you need. We also have, as I said before, we have services in dealing with if you've never really learned how to balance your finances. That's some of the things that we talk about in Brother to Brother. So there are a number of issues that our students are plagued with before they even enter the doors. And I think that sometimes I'm very glad you said that. that is a big obstacle at times for people. They're embarrassed. So what we want to do is make that environment a very safe and comforting environment over on our campus. And we've done a lot to accommodate our students. So in addition to all of those wraparound services, there have been discussions now where we're in discussions now about like dwelling, affordable housing in the area for people who want to get educated. So the whole gamut we're running through from top to bottom and ensuring that we're at least having that dialogue, because it's important.
Reverend Harrison is the president of 10 Point Coalition, and he has often ran into in trying to help, we've often ran into those who need employment, and sometimes we refer to them as little pookie them, but they need employment, they need education.
Right.
One of the things we hope to do in the future is to partnership with organizations like 10 Point Coalition and other organizations, perhaps on some presidential scholarships to a certain degree, to at least get them jump started toward the way out.
And,
because the issue is, how do we skill people up?
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that we didn't talk about, and we can, and I want to make sure that this is addressed too, that criminal history from people who've had justice involved issues. They're like, man, where do I fall into play? What's going on here? So we've had those similar conversations just last year, and we've moved forward on this. We had what we call Elevate, and at the time, Prosecutor Mears was so gracious in the sense that working to help expunge people's criminal histories, expungement, and then placing them with employers who understand this dilemma that the individual finds themselves in. And so we've got employers that are understanding and empathetic and sympathetic to our community's needs. So there are a number of things that we can talk and address. My friend over at Ivy Tech now, Chevelle Russell, I'm going to give her a shout out. She's in charge of the Elevate program right now. And we've been in contact with some of the prosecutors and even some of the surrounding prosecutors who aren't on board now. But let's start having those kind of conversations. Here's why. We want to be able to go out, walk down the street, and buy some milk or buy some bread like any other community. Right. And you see so often, Reverend Harris, you're responding to these situations where you just breaks your heart. Right. And you minister to them in the congregation, and it breaks your heart. And these men and women don't want to be victims of those particular environments, but they're plagued by it, and we want to make sure that we help so they don't have to live in that dilemma for the rest of their lives.
Right, that's so true.
And so like we have what we call the Elevate. That's one of those other wraparound services that the college has really tried to understand. And we're doing that because this is what the community is asking for. Employers are asking for sound and solid workforce. And you can't tell me an individual who made a mistake at 16 or 25 is the same individual now at 35 and 45. I would hope not. If they've served their debt to society.
That Elevate also has an emphasis on reentry, so as it relates to those who have victims, inmates that are now reentering society. So I think Elevate has an arm in that too.
So how was that connected to the Department of Corrections, or the Marion County Jail? We're trying to, how do we transition people on a pathway of success rather than, repeating the same mistakes and ending up back in jail or a victim of a violent crime? Right.
Those conversations are occurring now. And it's encouraging for me to know that these conversations are occurring. Okay. One of the things I will tell you, though, is that there's a concerted effort between, I know that Prosecutor Mears is very adamant about inputting, and I can't speak for him at this point, but he said it publicly about making sure that we are doing the best that we can for our community members and our young people, and not re-victimizing them after they've already paid their debts to society. As if, as if they don't have a way out. And so one of the things that we've said as a college is that these are our citizens. Right. This is their community college. We're the only college that has community in its name. And I think that's by design. And I think that what we have to do as leadership and what we have to do as a collective is to ensure that we're acting not only in the best interest of our mission statement, but the best interest of our Hoosiers, of the state citizens. And these are community members who may have blemishes, but that blemish is not going to define who they are.
Absolutely.
And that is what we're really, really after. So I think, to answer your question, I think that these conversations are ongoing. We began talking about this several years ago, and we're continuing that conversation and those dialogues as we speak.
I know we, 10 Point, and I say we, 10 Point, we normally get a lot of letters from individuals who are incarcerated or coming out and looking for help, so that, when they come out, they have some hope for a brighter future. Yes.
Send them to Ivy Tech.
Send them to Ivy Tech. We will do that.
Yeah, send them. And I'm saying that not as a for cherry on top, just because I'm sitting here. But what I really, really ultimately am trying to convey is that they want to change their paradigm, and they want their occupation. They want to have an occupation that's meaningful to them, and they can work and they can support themselves and their families. So let's work it out together. Let's problem solve together. We can be a piece to your puzzle, but we don't know that you need a puzzle piece until you let us know, until we are introduced to you. So send them to the college. And if they're if they're spread out across the state, send them to your local campuses. And I truly mean that, because that is how you galvanize a community, change a culture and a workforce for the betterment of us all.
Yeah, that is so true. That is so true. Chris, thank you.
Man, I'm so glad to see you. I
yes,
really
sir.
appreciate being here.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been Real Talk with Reverend Terry Webster Sr. and Reverend Charles Harrison. And we try to bring you real talk about the real issues that affect our communities here in Indianapolis and across the state. Be sure to follow and subscribe to this podcast and share it on Facebook and X. And we thank you so much for joining us again. And myself and Pastor Webster pray that you have a blessed and an awesome day.
This is Real Talk with Reverend Charles Harrison.
Be sure to like and subscribe to this podcast.
And be sure to check out other great podcasts on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
Online now at allindianapodcast.com.